Hello and welcome to My Voice podcast. I'm Alex Wilkinson, a sport and exercise psychology student from Loughborough University. I'm currently on an internship with Sport and Communities, who are a community development organisation that supports all members of the community, from young to old, across a broad spectrum of needs. This podcast is part of the My Voice project, a national community lottery-funded programme that helps to give young people a voice in their community and a platform for creating change and social action. Thank you for taking the time to join me, and welcome to My Voice podcast. Today I'm joined by Ross and Kobe, who were my very first guests on the podcast. A warm welcome back to you guys. How have you both found lockdown?
Really good. I say really good. As good as it can be. Thank you. I think it's been quite productive. But again, I think I'm just missing the outside world now.
Yeah, like everyone else, I suppose. What about yourself, Ross?
Well, I'm keeping myself busy. Obviously, a lot of my work is online. But I've got to be honest with you, I quite like the isolation. And it's as strange as it sounds. I go out in the morning and I look up down the street and there's nobody around. It's a very long street. So I've started to claim the street as if it's my own. So there you go.
Since our first podcast 6 weeks ago, when the lockdown started, there's been a huge change to our not-so-normal lives. Dramatic measures have been implemented across the world, with social distancing and wearing masks now just seen as normal behaviour. All of a sudden, in a short space of time, the world's way of functioning changed, and as a civilization, we've been forced to act fast to help flatten the curve and to avoid mass death. We've actually been living in a historic moment, and we all feel it. And I'd like to start this podcast with a question about what you're going to continue doing once you get out of lockdown. With everything that has changed in recent times, what have you discovered and enjoyed during lockdown that you'll want to carry on afterwards?
For me, I actually got nominated, for the 5k runs that people are doing. The 5k, where you run 5k, nominate 5 people. Now, if you know me as a person, you know I do not run. Running and Kobe do not go in the same sentence. It's quite a nightmare and quite a sight for sore eyes. But I gave it a go. I completed my first run and I've actually been on 3 since. So I say after lockdown I'm going to continue to try is the key word there. Run.
Well done.
Excellent. Well, for me, I'm going to make an announcement. I know I'm not pregnant. On the very first week, I decided that because of the lockdown and what that actually meant, that like yourself, Kobe, I thought I'm going to get myself fit. So I challenged myself to running a marathon a week for the duration. So I've ran 7 marathons in 7 weeks. And I'm feeling the pain of it at the moment. So I'm going to, the reason for that is I looked on the screen in my isolation room at the map of the UK and I thought, it looks really tiny, the UK, and maybe I could run that actually, the John O'Groats to Land's End. That'd be quite easy because it looks really tiny on the screen. So I set myself this task, but I didn't reckon on how long it was going to take or how long it was in the distance. So after about 4 weeks, I decided to check on that, and it's about 900 miles. So I'm making an announcement now. I'm doing that until the very end.
You're showing me up, Ross.
No, join me. I might not make it at my age, gentle age. But that's what I'm putting us to shame. Yeah.
Oh, that's unbelievable. Incredible. That's amazing, yeah.
How long will it take you? Did you say quite a few months?
Yeah, it's going to be, I think it's going to be November when I finish, if I finish.
Wow. Are you ever doing more? Are you ever doing like more to almost get ahead? Because that's where I'd be so tempted to just try.
No, unless it was.
I'd ruin it for myself. I think. No, I've done too much now.
I might get somebody to drive me whilst I'm running at high speed and then cover more distance.
as a society, we're watching the statistics, we're following the recommendations, and we're listening to the experts. Ross, you've been a youth worker for numerous years now and have been part of academic research into the area of play. What do you believe will be the future for the youth work within communities?
I think it's a very interesting time that we're all sort of having to experience, and I am concerned that the emotional well-being of young people who are in lockdown, emerging from that, will be a real issue that we need to address as a society. I think it's something that it's going to, I think, overwhelm us a little bit to begin with. So we need to put measures in, or any youth organisation needs to ready itself for the transition back into direct provision. It'd be very interesting to see what develops from each of the communities that we're working with. In terms of the Cook Eat Play programs that we run, the holiday provision, I've just been on a conversation with some researchers who are concerned about not just the children, but the impact that it's had on the family unit, and how that sort of has manifested itself in lockdown, and what has been the issues that has put strain on the families, and how that then is articulated in the community through behaviours and through attitude. And so it's going to be a very trying time, I think. We will get back to some form of normality if you know. And I know that there's going to be social distancing in place, so it's going to be unusual for a while. But we're human beings, and we are social beings, and we want to connect with each other. So I think we will learn from it, but we'll go back to some kind of pre-COVID relationship with young people, and then with each other as well. And so it'll normalise, but hopefully we will reflect and learn from this. And so that's how I see it. I know that's a very convoluted answer, but it's an unknown.
Yeah, it's a massive unknown. And as you mentioned there about family stress, and you don't know where this family stress may go into different areas of life. Kobe, you're a teacher, so you wonder whether this enter into schools. So what do you think the future of education could look like in schools?
I think it'll be really difficult, to be honest. I think it's going to take a long time for everybody to adjust, not just teachers but students as well. And I think it's going to take a lot of effort from the teachers and support from them towards the students, because at the end of the day they've gone for, what is it, 7 weeks now? Yeah. 7 weeks, I think. 7 weeks without seeing their friends, without being in that structured environment, and they are now going to be put back in it. And I think it's a lot. It is a lot. It'll be like starting school all over again. Yeah. And I think the teachers need to be aware of that, and they need to be willing to understand that students aren't going to want to learn straight away. You need to like almost ease them into it. It's not going to happen straight away, I don't think. It'll be difficult.
So out of routine, like you say, and they need a social play aspect.
Oh, definitely.
To release some stresses and catch up on lost time with their friends. I think that's really important, because as you mentioned there, they've not been to school for such a considerable amount of time.
That's it. And I think it will be really difficult to get them. If I know there's rumours, is it June 1st? There are rumours that June 1st we could be going back into schools. So if that is the case, it just raises questions. What happens for the year 11s that's already got their grades? How are they going to learn in school when they think it doesn't really matter, I've already got my results? And it raises a few flags, and I do wonder how it's all going to go down, to be honest.
I can't imagine many year 11s who have got their GCSE results
wanting to learn.
Would not. They wouldn't want to learn, and if they did go to school, they'd only want to socialise or maybe be mischievous because these are the last days in school. And I think that could create a lot more problems than what it's actually worth, because what do they get out of that last part of school, I suppose, when they once they got those results?
Well, that's it, exactly. And it's the fact that there's all the other students as well, even though they've not sat exams or anything else, they've almost had that summer holiday that they all look forward to. They've had it now. They're going to go back to school for a month, and then they're going to have another 6 weeks off. How can you get that structure within that short period of time? Would it not make more sense to just run its course all the way through and let them refresh a full reboot in September? It's difficult, and I honestly don't know how they're going to do it.
Well, I mean, they could come to us and ask us to
exactly. I'll do it for them.
if we'd actually ran summer schools, but in a more playful way, where it becomes a social integration, so that transition between primary to secondary, you open up the secondary school and allow there's that cohort to come through, but it becomes a social thing. They'll be eased into that into the familiarity of their surroundings, and then. So there's some scope there, but time is everything. I tell you what's really interesting me. I mean, I'm reflecting back on many years ago when I was a child. I had a situation where we lost a whole year of learning, and we were graded based on what our projected qualifications, scores would be. And I do recall feeling quite aggrieved that I was awarded a lower mark than I thought I could achieve. And I'm wondering, are students, will they feel frustrated? Will they feel that it's justifiable, or that they'll feel elated that they've been awarded a standard or a high award for the qualification that they haven't taken? And it's one of those things because it haunted me for a long time. Actually, I felt because it stopped me from going into an area that I wanted to go in post school because it was seen as a lower grade. So it's going to have consequences, I think, for a long time.
I think definitely, and like some students will see it as so unfair because they will be given almost the same grade as somebody else in their class who doesn't try as hard. And although we can notice that as teachers, that tends to be put as more of an effort level rather than a grade. So effort levels aren't taken into consideration when they're predicting so it is going to be really difficult, and I think a lot of students will get disheartened and they won't want to be put back into education. So will it dishearten them from going to college, going into further education just because they didn't feel like they got the right result?
I know and I'm just using me as an example, it was touch and go with me in terms of the course that I wanted to get on because of this. I had to negotiate and argue that I was heading for a higher grade, and it was really touch and go. And I scraped through, and I'm just wondering how many other young people will have to experience what I had to experience, who are on that sort of, I don't know, that borderline in terms of attainment. It can be critical for some of these youngsters wanting to achieve and go on. So I'm just, amongst other anxieties that they will have with what we've just spoken about in terms of loss of communication with their friends, and that reconnection is got to take place in that school environment before any learning takes place.
Definitely.
Quite a fragile time in terms of collecting your results and getting that part of your education. And I think you use your GCSEs as a stepping stone for your bigger exams, because I remember once you go on to your A levels in college, it seems you've been in that situation before, you know how to deal with the stress and you know how to prepare. But if you've never been put through such scrutiny during your GCSEs, and it's going to make it a lot harder down the line.
Oh, definitely. I think they are going to really struggle. They are, and it's fact, and it will be a test.
And what's interesting as well, coming out of this, we don't know when we're going to come out of this, and as an organisation, we're all sort of readying ourselves to deliver the holiday provision that we've programmed. So we don't know whether that's going to take place or not, because we just don't know. So everybody's hanging back. But if it does happen, I think we'll face the same sort of outpouring of emotion on those place schemes and holiday provision that we're going to have to manage in some way, shape, or form. There's going to be things that, will come from that lockdown that will emerge on those schemes that we'll have to deal with, maybe from a safeguarding perspective. So there's things that have gone on that we don't know about that will become apparent in those venues because we have a social environment, don't we? People talk openly about things. And equally on our youth work practice as well, that again will be another interesting pressure. And knowing how to, because we've got to go with the science on this. We can't go with the sort of, I suppose, the political sort of will to get everybody back to work. We've got to go by the science and their recommendations. So what that looks like is, the social distancing. How does that sort of work in practice? So we've got some challenges ahead for us as practitioners working in the community. How do we deliver that, or do we continue to deliver the virtual world that we've created online until it is totally clear that we can interact with young people, so they're not passing on infection and we're not becoming casualties of that, or our immediate families. So it's a real delicate moment in time.
Yeah, I agree, but it's the whole, will they ever know if it's 100% safe? Someone's got to take the risk at some point. And
it's a fine one, isn't it? Nobody's got the definitive, and everybody's looking at the infection rate, that going down as the indicator for change, and I think it's right. And but we've seen in other countries where it's gone back up again because of the lockdowns. So
it's second peak, and that's what we run the risk of.
And particularly as a country that's got the biggest sort of unfortunate death rate, it's a real concern for folks. So it's precarious and delicate, and it's. I think we've just got to go with the science and be steered by that, and not feel that we have to go into those environments because there's a pressure, societal pressure. I think we've got to protect the children, young people first, and ourselves.
Definitely.
I think, like you were saying about going with the science, our society relies on science so much nowadays and is almost controlled by science, because we are waiting for these statistics and figures to show a positive result in a decline of people catching coronavirus. And in that aspect, it is a waiting game, like you're saying. But I think while people have been at home, they have realised how lucky they are to have the basics of food, water, shelter, clothing, education and healthcare. And I think especially healthcare, as our NHS has been our saviour throughout the pandemic, even for Boris Johnson, who survived coronavirus with the help of the NHS and with his political influence. Do you think there'll be big changes to our NHS in the future?
I think, I don't know whether big changes, but for me, there definitely should be one change. And I've discussed it with a few people before. I know for a fact that nurses and doctors actually have to pay for car parking. So for me, that should be a change in itself. Like, they have put their lives on the line, and it shouldn't have taken this for them to realise that they shouldn't have to pay to park to work and save lives. Like, that just doesn't add up in my eyes. And I know for a fact my local hospital, it's £3.10 for 2 hours parking. So if they're working a 12-hour shift, how much money are they spending on a week? Like, it just doesn't add up. And I think it's that level of respect, and we need to see that throughout. And it shouldn't have taken coronavirus for everybody to notice that they need to respect the key workers, not just NHS or key workers. It shouldn't have taken this for us to almost gain that level of respect, but it has taken this, and I just hope that it's maintained and people don't almost let it drop off as soon as they get back to their busy schedules. But
and like I say,
again, I think it's just time will tell.
It's not a big change, but it's one that they just deserve. Exactly. They shouldn't have to pay for such a basic necessity. Everybody drives to work, and even in different areas where public pay for parking, those that are working there have permits, or there's electronic ways of detecting who works there and who isn't. So it's a change that should definitely be implemented.
It's interesting. You have to ask the question, how we got to this point where people are having to pay to park, and I suppose history will give us the answers to that one. I mean, but moving forward in terms of the NHS, I'm a real keen supporter of additional contributions to the national insurance contribution, because that will en masse give us the resources, and that's what we're paying NI for, is those public services to protect us and keep us safe. And I think it's really important that we prop it up in that way, rather than it becoming some kind of charitable cause, because that's a dangerous, slippery slope. And for charities also, because other charities with other services that they deliver require that money. We're paying the NHS to protect us and keep us safe. I think we should pay a little bit more if they're underfunded, so we continue in that vein and keeping it as a world-class service as it is. When we look at the Americans and what people have to do there to get any kind of healthcare, it's
scary.
It's absolutely scary, and I'm so grateful that I live here. And I've been a recipient of the NHS, and I wouldn't be here without those people. And so I've got immense amount of respect for those individuals who kept me alive, and I think they deserve everything, that we can offer up to them to keep them safe, and a profession that doesn't have to go cap in hand to anybody. It's so wrong, So if that comes out of it, if that's something positive that comes out, that's great. And with regards to the key workers, it's shone a lens, a big bright light through a lens that should have been shone a long time ago. And if it stayed, I personally would like it to stay a political football, so it keeps getting talked about and kicked around in Westminster. So until we get the right money for those people. But yeah, it's been a big wake-up call for the country, and it's been a period of time where we start to look around and appreciate people for what they do and how they make our lives that little bit more better. And hope at some point we can actually go out and do that and help other people as well. So,
hopefully
soon.
Yeah. One day we'll be able to, won't we? In the near future. I think there's been a lot more respect for people responsible and key workers who've been providing for our communities, and everybody seems to be so friendly during lockdown, and neighbours are supporting each other and checking up on one another. Do you think that local communities have benefited from the coronavirus, Kobe?
Oh, definitely. They definitely have. Like, I've seen videos go viral on the internet where people have been getting their karaoke machines out and doing bingo in their village and sitting on their drives and having a conversation with people. And it's like, even with us where I live, on a Thursday night when we go and do the clap, it's almost become a competition amongst all the families. So everyone comes out and it's who's got the loudest instrument. We've got clown horns, we've got pots and pans, and I come out with my referee whistle, show them all up. But it's a running competition, and I think it's great. And if anything, I hope it continues, that communication and just almost that sense of togetherness.
I think it's ignited a lot of fires within communities, and people have really sort of come together and actually realised who they're living next to. I think that's a big thing. How have you found it in your area, Ross?
It's more basic than that. It's walking down the street and people actually looking up and saying hello and good morning, and it was a shock. But it reminded me that I too need to do the same back, and become more civil. So it was first time it happened to me. I was a little bit sort of questioning why they were saying hello, as if they wanted something from me.
Have you got a sticker on your forehead?
No, I thought no. What they're doing is they're showing human sort of connection and wanting it in return. And I thought, this is good. I felt good. I felt ashamed that I didn't respond in the way I should have done. So I made sure the next time I was out, I was the first one to say hello. And it makes us all, I suppose, we are living on this planet together, and we can't live in isolation from one another. And if that comes out of that sort of, like you say, that connectedness, that sense of being a part of a community, a collective, then I think that's great. And I'm more aware now than ever before of people around me, and I'm not in my own little bubble anymore. I'm looking out. I'm my head's up, looking for eye contact now.
Yeah. Sorry, I think it links with what you said in that first week. So when you were talking about, what was it, in neighbours sharing vegetables over the fence and growing their own produce, it links to that. Like, there's people making brownies and dropping them on people's doorsteps, and banana bread, because that's become a massive craze at the minute, and just taking it to friends and family and leaving it on their doorsteps or even their next door neighbours. I think it's just showing how kind everyone's.
It's that, that they call the milk of human kindness, that we are hardwired to, I believe, as human beings, to show love, I think, and compassion. It's in our DNA, and I think it's part of who we are, but it's been, suppressed as a society.
Oh, definitely.
We've got to be reserved, or in the other extreme is hate. That seems to get dominance over love and care. And I think if the power of that empathy and love for the humankind balances over that seesaw in the positive coming out of this, I think that's a real win for society.
Yeah.
I'm looking, there's a build up at the moment for the VJ celebrations, and there's bunting out. I've seen bunting out, which is
I love it. When the village gets the bunting out, that's when you know there's going to be a party.
Exactly. I'm just thinking that's going to be an interesting social distancing party, but there's this sort of feeling that people want to celebrate and sort of be a part of the community. It's done for all the horrible things that have happened to all those families and those bereaved folk. It's unimaginable. I think if we take the positive out of it, is this human spirit and energy that's coming out of people wanting to see a different way of looking at the world, and I hope it continues. Maybe we need to sort of do something about that as an organisation to keep the momentum of that alive.
Yeah.
Especially with our youngsters, because I think they're sort of seeing this for the first time. I can speak for myself. As an old timer, I've seen a lot of things happen in society over the years, and I've seen that we've dipped in and out of incredible times over my sort of period of life. But for younger people, this is their first time in. Let's see what they can learn from that. So let's see what they can teach us.
Yeah, definitely.
They're the hope.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It'd be lovely to see a annual celebration, sort of once we come out of the coronavirus, to sort of celebrate obviously what people did for the country and the world, and what people did for each other. So if there could be a sort of a day where people did celebrate annually and remembered what people went through this year, because I can't imagine, well, I can imagine now, but I'd hope that nothing like this happens in our lifetime again. I mean, the question still looms as to whether there'll be a second wave and whether we could possibly go into another lockdown. But in terms of what the actual pandemic has showed to the world, I think it's put a lot of people's morals straight and really made them reflect on whether working 50-hour weeks is really the best choice in life, and whether all the nice cars and sort of designer clothes, what does that really hold? What value does that hold in their life when they've now found themselves in lockdown, maybe on their own or with family, and you realise what's important to yourself and what isn't important.
I think that's so true. Those things don't, and maybe it'd be great, wouldn't it, when you look at other countries that have got a different sort of structure, and they don't go to work as for longer hours. They have a better society, I think, because they're more open to developing their community. And if we can take some of that and sprinkle it over our communities and our nation, I think we'll be better for it. I do believe that we've got the opportunity now to make a big change, and looking forward to it. And I'd certainly, on an individual level, it's changed my own mindset about where I live and what I'm going to be doing. And when lockdown finishes, I've got a couple of bollards that are at the top of the road that need painting. I'm just going to go and paint them.
Oh,
but
that's so sweet.
They need paintings, and nobody's painting them. So I'm going to, that it's called physical determinism, isn't it? It's about being connected to where you live and making, so don't, make a contribution.
Yeah.
Put more in than you take out of society, and you'll have a better society, or for the future.
Especially if everyone had that mindset, I think.
Yeah.
It could be amazing.
If everybody does little things, you slowly see a big change in society and your community.
I came up with I sat in my house and I came up with this idea of if we all did a national day of volunteering, and I'm not meaning a full day, I mean 5 minutes of volunteering, where we all stepped out of our front doors and we did a clean-up of our immediate area and put it in the bin. And if we did that, 65 million people did that on one day. I wonder how much rubbish we could collect. But you don't have to do much to make a big difference. And I think that's what this has shown us, that everybody collectively can go out and show their support. Like, imagine if we brought everybody out to do something, a task of some description. That'd be incredible.
It would. Do you know what? Get you in charge, Ross.
Well, yeah, but I'll be distracted by too many things. If it's shiny, I'll be distracted.
You part magpie.
That's right. I never saw myself as a magpie.
Well, you have now.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
There's been so much change recently. I think people are planning and trying to look forward to the future. And with the normalisation of sanitising stations at all supermarkets, and if you went to the airport, you now get your temperature taken. What do you think global travel, or even local or national travel, will look like in the future? Are people going to be going away on holidays? Are they going to be fearful? How do you guys feel about travel and holidays in the future? Because we might find that we're flying to holiday destinations that are really busy or actually really empty.
I was on a conference call yesterday. It's called Playing Streets, or Street Play. No, Playing Streets was. It's an organisation in Bristol, and it had 450 people on the call. And it had people like Sustrans, which are a sustainable transportation organisation. And they're looking at, because of this very issue of people wanting to really don't want to be confined in vehicles, looking at alternative modes of transport and turning their area, their immediate space outside their house, by blockading off the streets and turn it into a playground for the children once a month. And people are starting to think about how they walk to work and different ways of doing that. It's a conversation that's happening now with those sustainable transport networks, because people are wanting to find other ways. What we can't have is more people, single individuals, and I'm one of them, unfortunately, so I'm a bit of a hypocrite here, who sit in my vehicle on my own. We can't have more people, more traffic, because the environment's changed, doesn't it? I don't know if you've experienced it, but I just go outside and it feels fresher.
Yeah.
It feels, I can breathe. It's incredible.
Although the amount of cars is increasing again slowly. I noticed it on my walks, and I do worry a bit, but then at the same time, like, it's nothing compared to what it used to be. But it probably, again, time will tell whether it will just go straight back to normal again.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about travelling abroad. We've got a holiday booked, but in this country, we don't know whether it's going to be cancelled or not, because it's in all these little holiday camps, and it's a bit unset. We're a bit anxious about the whole thing, but travelling on an aeroplane to go somewhere else, I don't know. It's I've got anxieties about that.
But then at the same, I do think. there's all these precautions being put in place on the plane where they're saying they might as well not take off because they can only have a certain amount of passengers because of spreading them out. But then in my eyes, like, if you're going to send that plane anyway with that small amount of passengers, you should fill the seats, because they always say, isn't it, the ventilation, the air travels constantly through the plane. So if that's the case, surely I just flinged my microphone. surely if you fill the airplane, it's just exactly the same as if they were sat like distance, because of the ventilation.
Yeah, recycling the air, aren't you? Yeah.
So I don't know. I as much as I really want to go on my holiday in August, it's not going to be safe. And even if it is safe for us to travel, will it be the same when we're there? Will everything be open? Will we be able to go to the water parks? Will we be able to do all the fun things that we would normally do? Or is it's going to be a really difficult one?
It is difficult because, like Ross is saying, that he has anxieties about sort of global travel or going on a aeroplane yourself, Kobe. You've got one booked, so you feel you'd love to get away from all the lockdown and have a nice relaxing time on holiday. But I feel like holidays will feel so different and come with sort of a negative feeling at times, which isn't what a holiday is about at all, is it? It's about to go away and relax. And
exactly, it's like terms and conditions.
It is, and the Olympic Committee have said that next year, if the 2020 Olympics, it will not go ahead if a vaccine has not been found in time, because you can't bring people from all over the world to a city for such a large sporting event. And you wonder, I think a lot of people will have the same idea about holidays. People will be thinking, I don't want to go on holiday unless there is a vaccine, and I know that people are safe to go away, or these people have been tested, because you would hate to become ill on holiday. It's everybody's worst.
Oh, definitely.
There's one destination though that is really safe. I think we've all got it. It's called Le Jardin de Bac.
Your back garden.
Yeah.
Hey. I spend too much time with you, Ross.
There you go. It sounded exotic. I thought I'd say it.
Yeah. I love that. Get the ice pops out. A towel on the grass.
Yeah.
Hopefully we have a warm summer and everyone will forget about going anywhere.
Oh, fingers crossed.
Yeah, it's. I've got family over in Spain, and they went in Malaga, and they had an extreme lockdown there, where they had to produce passports and things like that to just travel around their own community. So the police were on every corner street, and it was a real sort of oppressive. And you can imagine in Spain, even at this time of year, the heat is quite oppressive, and so they're just coming out of it. But their tourism industry, that they rely heavily on tourism.
Oh yeah, so definitely.
It's going to probably collapse their economy totally unless they've got to get some quantitative easing going on.
Well, I know there's speculation that Spain are actually opening their pubs starting June 1st as well.
So popular date, isn't it? June 1st. Yeah,
June 1st. I don't know why that's set in everybody's minds, but again, speculation. You never know anything until it's said on the news, really, do you?
And like you say, Ross, there's so much money being brought in through tourism and restaurants and drinking, and there's such a culture once you go on holiday that people spend money, and without those tourists, and there's no money being spent, and that's affecting their seasonal livelihood.
Yeah,
definitely.
So there's all sorts of pressures, isn't there? On everybody, and then dependency as well because of that holiday trade. But at the end of the day, we should, going back to our original point, is it's got to be safe before we can really fully open our doors to everybody. And the only way that it will be totally safe is when a vaccine appears on the horizon. So it's got to be that really that will turn things around for everybody.
And the world waits on a vaccine.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Hurry up.
Keeping yourselves fit whilst you're in lockdown? Are you sort of?
I did a 4.24 kilometre run today.
What, in your dining room? Whereabouts? Outside?
Yeah.
Wow, good for you.
That's not that far, but I mean that's far for me. I was dying. Came home and
4 kilometres is further enough.
I think it sounds far because of the way you said it. And so
I dragged it out. I'm a professional at making things sound harder than what they are.
You got every last metre in there, didn't you?
Exactly. Yes. Don't forget anything.
Say copper soup and make it challenging. Go on. A big claim there.
Copper soup.
Yeah.
Oh, a copper soup.
There you go. Oh, yes. Big effort. No, I think it's really challenging, isn't it? Staying fit and staying focused and being motivated. So that internal sort of discipline that you've got to have to get out and about and exercise. And you know, going back to what you were saying before, Alex, are things that we can benefit from for those people who've taken up the running and because I see so many people running around, which is I've never seen before, which is fantastic. There's a willingness to sort of be healthy so they don't impact on the NHS.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I think that's great.
Definitely.
And I just hope everyone keeps it up.
Can I just say thank you for joining me on today's podcast. It's been lovely to have you both on. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Talking to us. Okay. Well, I hope to speak to you all soon on another podcast, and thank you. Voice podcast.